Hello Internet, and welcome to a new tutorial. So you might be familiar with Adam Szabo Viper. It's a virtual analog synthesizer aimed at reproducing the characteristics of a legendary synthesizer. We're basically talking about the virus. Now, I've made a full overview of this synthesizer. You can find the link to it right in here. But today, we're going to talk about the new update that Adam released a week ago. It's the version 1.1.0, and also how to emulate the grain mod oscillator from the virus in a synthesizer that doesn't have it. Now, before we dive into this tutorial, if you'd like to support the channel, help me make more psychedelic content, tutorials, and music, you can always consider becoming one of my patrons. If you want to learn all about making modern Psytrance bass lines, my Psybass crash course is on my Gumroad, alongside my other preset packs, so go check it out. And you can also leave a like, comment, subscribe if you're new to the channel. Content like this is posted every week, and special content for my patrons. Now, with that said, let's dive into our tutorial. So here we are in Bitwig. We have Viper right in front of us, and I've never been contacted by Adam nor been paid by him to make this content. I really think this synthesizer is exciting and pretty unique, and I want to share this with you guys. So why I think it's unique? There's several reasons for it. First off, unlike the hardware it's trying to emulate, this synthesizer is always being updated. Second of all, it might be trying to emulate a hardware synthesizer, but it's still a unique synthesizer like Serum, just not like a random emulation. So you're basically hitting two birds with one stone. I hope that makes sense. Third off, this synthesizer has a unique workflow, and I think this pushes the boundaries of creativity, because when you're trying to make a sound with it, you're not going to think of it like the whole process of creating a sound is way different than using, let's say, Serum. And I think this is awesome. This plays a huge part in creativity. So let's take an initial patch for a second. See, the matrix, I've already explained everything in my overview, but going really fast in here, the matrix has 6 slots, and each slot has 1 source and 3 destinations. And this, starting with this is pretty limiting, but at the same time, it's a little bit weird because, normally we have 1 source, 1 destination, but here we have 1 source, 3 destinations. And there's a lot of pre-hardwired, let's say, modulations in the synth. So let's take the filter. For example, you already have the envelope amount to cutoff, basically the envelope modulating the cutoff amount. And here we have the velocity to the envelope amount, we have the velocity to resonance, and all of these are pre-hardwired. So as I said, the whole process of creating a sound is different. And I think this, again, plays a huge part in creativity. I really love that. And one main reason why I love this configuration is how the filters work and react with each other, because we have 2 filters that we can route in serial or parallel, and there's like different combinations of that. We have serial 4, 6, parallel split. I've already explained that in the overview, so go check it out if you don't know what I'm talking about. But again, I think the way you're going to interact with these filters and how they interact with each other's plays a huge part in, first off, making the sound unique, and second of all, and really pushing that creativity. Again, I swear I'm going to stop talking about pushing the creativity. So these were the main reasons why I think this synthesizer is unique. Now let's talk about the new features. So first off, as you can see, now we can load our own custom skins. Just by clicking on the menu, we have, new skins drop menu in here. I think this is pretty nice, adds a little touch to the synthesizer. Second, we have the view schematic option in here. Basically, we can see how the audio is routed in the synthesizer, and I think this is a really nice touch, because sometimes you will forget about what's the difference between parallel and split, let's say. So when you go to view schematic in here, you'll see that in split, first oscillator, sub oscillator going to filter 1, oscillator 2, 3, with the ring modulation and the noise going to filter 2, etc. So I think it's a really nice touch. And now we have 4 new filter types in here: analog LP 1, 2, 3, 4. Adds a really nice touch to the synthesizer. We never say no to new filter types. And the last feature I want to talk about in this update, which is a huge step, I think, is the import Midi bank. So what this thing does is that now you can load the virus preset banks inside of Viper. Now Viper understand these banks, and as long as the preset that you're trying to load doesn't use a feature that Viper doesn't have, like let's say the grain mod oscillator, then it's going to work. It might not sound exactly the same, but it still is going to work. So you will get the essence of the virus with this. I think this is a huge update feature, and yeah, thanks Adam, hats off, as we say. So yeah, with that said, these were the new major updates that I wanted to show you. Now let's start making some sounds with it. And as I said, we're going to emulate that grain mod oscillator. So first off, let's initialize the patch. Now we have this. Give it some volume. Nothing too special. Let's go to the oscillator section in here. The first oscillator, let's listen to it in solo. I'm going to set the shape all the way to the left. I'm going to leave it on classic. Classic mode, it's basically going to play a single cycle that you will choose, or a shape that you will choose. And the shape for this one, I'm going to set it to triangle. Triangle, nothing too special. Now let's go to oscillator 2. Oscillator 2, I'm going to set it to wavetable mode. And yep, you guessed it. We're going to the Virus TI wavetables, and we're going to load Sundial 3. Now, if you want these Virus wavetables, they are available on Adam's website, downloading for free. So go there, grab them, and play with them. Now, Oscillator 2, I'll set the morphing for now all the way to the left. Basically, the first shape, let's say, or the first cycle of the wavetable. All of the sound comes from the FM algorithm in here. We're going to set it to phase mode alt. Okay. And if I'll crank that FM amount, check this out. See where I'm going with this? Let's take the first oscillator down by an octave. And now we have this. Awesome. Now, let's take that detuning off. It just takes off this little phasing. I don't want that little phasing in the sound. Man, this is awesome. So what I'm going to do now, I'll create a really simple sample and hold type of arpeggiated lead with it, and play a little bit with the filters and see what we can do with it. So here I have a simple pattern in G sharp 1. It sounds like this. Nothing too special. Now let's start playing with it. So the first thing I'm going to do, let's go to the LFOs in here. Let's set the first LFO to sample and hold. I'll sync it, and I'll set the sync to 1 1/16. Okay. Now the phase of the LFO, I'll set it to 1. So now every time it's going to receive a new note, it's going to fire a new value, because when it's on 0, it's going to be on random. And we don't want that because it might get out of sync. So let's set it to 1. Now let's turn on the arpeggiator. Let's sync it, set it to 1/16th, and I'm going to use just 4 steps. It's it's a classic random sample and hold arpeggiated lead, so no need for craziness in the arpeggiator. I'll just turn on these steps, and now we have this. Yeah, I've set 1/6 instead of 1/16th. Pretty nice. Let's take the note length almost all the way down. And I'm going to modulate the note length with the first LFO that I already set to 1/16 sample and hold. Let's go to the matrix, take LFO1 unipolar, and make it modulate the ARP note length. By the way, I'm not sure because I have a virus A and everything is bipolar in the virus A. Maybe the virus TI doesn't have the option of using bipolar and unipolar LFOs. Please leave a comment. I really appreciate that. So ARP note length, let's modulate that, and pretty nice. Now we have our groove. Let's go to the envelopes, give it just a tiny bit of attack and a little bit of release, and set the whole synthesizer to mono. Pretty nice. Now I'm going to just set the arpeggiator to shorter note length. Now, here where the fun happens with the filters. So, first filter, I'm going to set it to bandpass, like so. Crank the resonance a little bit. And I'm going to modulate that with an LFO. So let's go to the LFO section in here. Second LFO, set it to sample and glide. I'll set it to sync and the rate to, let's set it to 1 and 2. And the phase, just like with the first LFO, set it to 1. And as you can see, LFO2 is already hardwired to the filters. So I'm going to modulate the first filter. Let's set it to 1 and 4 just to see if that makes any difference. Yeah, so far this fast modulation is pretty appealing for me. Now let's go back to the filters and let's set them to parallel. And I'm going to listen just to the second filter, like so. I'm going to leave it on low pass, give it some resonance, and close it. And what I'm going to do with it, I'll send a plucky envelope from, the filter envelope. I'm going to set it to something plucky, and I'll send it in here to give it like a plucky kind of groove. Okay, so now if I'll crank the envelope amount a little bit, we'll get this. More decay. Pretty nice. Now what I'm going to do, let's get back to the matrix in here and let's ask the first LFO to modulate the oscillator to FM amount. And let's leave it like so. Give it some modulation. LFO1 unipolar, sample and hold. Now we have this. That's way better. Now let's close that filter a little bit. Pretty nice, we got that pluckiness, and now let's ask the second LFO to modulate just a tiny bit the second filter, to give it some movement. And to smoothen up the modulation of the oscillator to FM amount, I'm going to ask the LFO2 to modulate a tiny bit the oscillator to FM. So since it's sample and glide, it's going to just smooth up the modulation, because LFO1 is just sample and hold in your step modulation. And now we have this. Pretty nice. Now let's blend both filters together. I'm going to close the first filter just a tiny bit and less modulation on it. Pretty nice. So, filter 1. Filter 2. Awesome. Now let's add a little bit of delay. For the delay, I'm going for a ping pong for 1, sync 3 on 8, basically 8th dotted. Let's take down some of the higher lower frequencies, less feedback. Now we have, and less mix. Now we have this. Pretty nice. And now with the kick and bass, we have this. That's just pretty awesome. You know, it doesn't have to have the grain mod oscillators. We can just emulate it, you know. I think, yeah, it sounds pretty nice. And yeah, I've added, by the way, some saturation in here. And the idea is that after the first filter stage, there is a saturation stage. And I've added a light algorithm saturation. And you can apply the saturation with the oscillator volume between -64 to 0. It's just volume for the oscillators. And when you crank it over 0, you'll start saturating. This is how it works on the original hardware. And yeah, I've just added slight saturation on it. And yeah, with this is the end of this tutorial. I really hope you've liked it, and I really hope you've learned something new. And yeah, see you next time.